KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for Black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Reparations, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for Black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the Black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising at KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got your Black.
KBLA Talk 1580. It is time for Freedmen Fridays. This is an ongoing conversation that we are having each and every week because there's so much momentum right now in the cause of reparations. And we at KBLA, me particularly, Dominique DiPrima, I want to be part of that momentum. That means helping to educate people, letting folks know what is actually being done to further this cause in every single arena, which it's happening in many states, it's happening in many cities and around the country. So we're meeting players, people from all different so-called camps and philosophies. We're finding out the history of reparations, where we are now, what can be done, and that is my commitment each and every Friday. And you are welcome to call in and be part of that conversation. As I said, my friend, comedian Ray Grady, will be joining us hour 3. We can keep talking about reparations with him, too, if you want to unpack. But right now, we're being joined by a man who is from Georgia, born in Savannah. And he was born in a small town out there, areas known for the Gullah Geechee, right? And so his family goes back. His family has been there, he says, since the mid-1700s. He is now running for Congress. And he is running for Congress on his major policy platform of reparations. Marcel, Dixon, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. And I just want to make a brief correction. It's Gregg Marcel Dixon, and I was born in Savannah, Georgia, but I'm from South Carolina, and that's where my family has lived for generations. So it's not far, but we're in South Carolina, right across the bridge from Savannah.
Okay, and you're taking on James Clyburn.
Yes.
Who's sort of a pillar of Black politicians, right?
Unfortunately.
Why do you say that?
Because you look at James Clyburn's history and just talking about specific policy for freemen, the Black American descendants of people who were emancipated by the American government, you will not find hardly any policy specifically for us. And that's an abomination, because when you look at Asian politicians, they're not afraid to stand up full-chested to promote policies for Asian American Pacific Islanders. We saw that during the COVID era. When you look at people who identify underneath the ethnicity of Hispanic, they are always pushing for policies specifically for people who are of the Hispanic ethnicity. You can look at people who are Arab. They are pushing right now for policies specifically for Arab people, even if they're not American.
I think Arab is actually a slur. I think you want to say Arab American.
Arab, sorry. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
no,
for
because
that.
no,
Arab.
because we don't want to be, insulting people, unless you do, in which case, then carry on.
No, I didn't know that there was a difference with the pronunciation.
Yeah, I think it is.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you look at James Clyburn's record, and it's not just James Clyburn, it's with a lot of Black American politicians, you will not see them having that same advocacy for their own people. And James Clyburn, like you said, he is a pillar of Black politics. He has a lot of power influence, and yet he has not used that for his own people. I live in his district. It's the sixth poorest district out of the 435 total districts here in America. It's a majority Black district, and we are to the bottom.
Okay, so really, we invited you here to talk about, reparations, but I was surprised because from what I see, most politicians run from having concrete reparations. Now, other than, here in California, we've seen that a different outcome, but most mainstream politicians, especially those on national platforms, do not talk about reparations.
No, they don't, and that's shameful.
So what was it that made you say, I'm going to make this a major policy platform, and what does that actually mean?
What made me say it is because I know a lot of times people like to look at the condition of Black Americans, and I'm talking about us as Black Americans, and we have this tendency to want to blame ourselves, or we should have done this, or we should have done that. And yet I've seen Black people, like I'm sure we all have, who have done everything right, and they're still falling to the bottom. There's a study, and this has been corroborated many, many times throughout decades. A college-educated, full-time employed Black American still has less wealth than a white male high school dropout. Okay, we can look at the history of Black Wall Streets, where our people pulled themselves up by their bootless straps, only to see those Black Wall Streets either burnt to the ground or the Federal Housing Authority put railroads and highways through them. So even when we make all the right decisions, we are still falling deeper in a hole. And when I look at the history of other groups that have been targeted and oppressed, not by individuals, because this is not a white people did this to Black people thing. This is what the American government did wrong to freedmen, or what they allowed to be done to us that was wrong. When they get reparations, it benefits them. We are the only group in this country that has been targeted by the American government and have yet to get any redress for that. And the same way the intern Japanese got it, Native Americans of the various tribes are getting it, we deserve it too. That's the only way we're going to come out of this hole that we are in.
So what does reparations mean specifically as far as what you, should you be elected to Congress, would implement?
Well, it means direct cash payments first and foremost. That is the pattern. You see, the good news, is it Dominique?
Yes.
The good news, Dominique, is that reparations is not something I have to create. We already have a pattern. The American government has done it many, many, many times. So all we have to do is look at precedent. So it means direct cash payments. That's first and foremost.
I mean, they've done it many, many times, but to be fair, not on the scale that they need to deal with Black Americans. I mean, we built this country. It's not the same as Japanese. They gave a small group of people, $20,000. I don't think, you know what I'm saying? I think it's at a much bigger scale. Are you trying to set up a state reparations commission? Are you, what are concrete next steps?
Well, again, it'll be direct cash payments, and we need to have our own agency that will be able to handle not just disbursement of funds, but there will be other matters, such as vetting who is a qualified recipient, and also handling, underneath my plan, which calls for land grants and business grants. We will need our own agency of the government. We had it before. It was called the Freedmen's Bureau. I know over there in California, they're doing one on the state level, but the Freedmen's Bureau was something that was done federally.
Well,
So
we're
plan
trying to
calls,
get one on the state level. Yeah, it hasn't. I mean, that bill hasn't passed yet. That's Bradford's bill. But yeah, so you want to do one. You're not focused on one for statewide. You want to focus on the federal level.
yes, that's why I'm running for federal office.
Right, but I mean, are you saying that you think that city and state efforts are useless, or you just think, because you're running for Congress, you should focus on a Freedmen's Bureau returning? And is that in lieu of supporting a new iteration of HR 40, or in tandem with it?
I believe that municipal level, state level reparative actions definitely have their value. If nothing else, they help to educate our people and help to educate us at large, whether you are Freeman or not, about the damage that has been done and that was done by governments of all different levels. I've even helped support the one there in California, working with some of the groups that have been essential in getting the reparations movement off the ground there. I was glad to support them in whatever capacity I could. However, the truth of the matter is that, again, whatever wrong was done to us, whether it was by a town in Alabama or it was by the state government of South Carolina, it was the federal government's responsibility to uphold our constitutional rights, and they failed to do so. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes to what we are owed, you said it earlier, this is going to be probably the largest scale reparations ever done by this government, because we built the nation, and there's far more of us than there are the Japanese Americans. It's going to take something that's federally to be able to afford what we are owed. And the federal government is the only entity that will be able to do that.
Right. So are you advocating for something like HR 40, where, which has been languishing in Congress for decades, to push for the passage of a federal study? Or are you saying bypass that and get right to a Freedmen's Bureau? And how would that happen?
Federal HR 40 is insufficient. So my bill goes far, doesn't really call for a study. Now, I agree, there are certain things that might need to be studied, because there's so many things that have been done to us that impact us in a negative way that we may have to research more into. But we already know a lot about the damage that has been done. The terrorism we experience is one of the most well documented in the history of mankind, especially in modern history. So I am not a fan of HR 40 because it doesn't specify the eligible recipients. It doesn't specify direct cash payments. And the truth be told, Dominique, the point you just made is true. HR 40 has been languishing in Congress for decades. And the Democrats, for whom most Black Americans, if they're going to vote, would vote for, had Congress from the 1960s all the way to the 1990s. They could have done HR 40, and they've had it since then. They had it.
Right. I mean, Republicans could have done it too, to be fair, though. To be fair, neither party. To be fair, neither party has really pushed for HR 40. I mean, Republicans could have done their version. They didn't do it either. But would you be in favor of the president doing it via executive action?
Executive order?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be great. I mean, I wouldn't be against that. But the point I want to make with the Republicans, I already know the Republicans suck. But most of our people aren't voting for the Republicans. 86-9% of our vote goes to the Democrats. So if I'm going to expect something to be done on our behalf, I'm going to not look to the party for which we mainly do not vote. I'm going to look to the party that gets most of our vote. If you get our vote, you get our accountability. So my study calls for calls for bypassing a study, and it calls for the establishment of the Freedmen's Bureau, and it calls for each eligible recipient to get paid an amount that's around $2.8 million. If there's something to be studied or to be investigated, that will be handled by our own little agency of the government, which will be the Freedmen's Bureau.
All right, we're talking with Gregg. Marcel Dixon. If you got a question or commentary, you're welcome to join. 800-920-1580. 800-920-1580. Got a lot of questions for you. What will it take to move something like that through a Congress that hasn't even been able to pass voting rights, why you choose Freedmen instead of, many other monikers that folks have, and what do you think is working? Those are just a few of the questions. I'd love to hear from the KBLA delegation at 800-920-1580. It's Freedmen Friday on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. First, thank you for your support of KBLA Talk 1580. We deeply appreciate you. So, I get asked all the time, Tavis, when are you going to bring back that State of the Black Union symposium you used to do? You know the one where you had all those black intellectuals on stage every year and everybody watched all day live on C-SPAN? Yeah, I know the one.
Let's bring them back.
Well, I am pleased to tell you that if you go to KBLA1580.com right now, you can sign up to be in the audience here in Los Angeles when we go back live on C-SPAN with a stage full of black thinkers and influencers for a historic conversation. America has never seen a stage full of black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's going down Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. Once we reach capacity, you'll have to watch us on C-SPAN. But if you want to be in the room when we go live from Los Angeles, Tuesday, June 18th, head to KBLA1580.com right now to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. With KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
I believe up there. Hey!
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now, you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears, thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
We're talking with Gregg Marcel Dixon. He's a reparationist. He's running for Congress against James Clyburn, and he is talking about why he chose reparations, but also just really want to make sure that folks are up on what's happening in the space and how this is gaining momentum. So let's talk about why you choose Freedmen. I think we've had a lot of conversation about that. I'm not sure that I don't want to go down too far down the rabbit hole on that, but you seem to be very intentional about it.
Yes. Well, if you look at, again, precedent is everything when it comes to legislation. Because once you have precedent, it makes it that much easier to do policies subsequently after that. So Freemen is a political status. Every time reparations has been done in this nation, it's been done via political status. Take, for example, Native American. Native American in and of itself is really a racial group. But you have various tribes like the Choctaw or the Navajo. Those are actual political statuses, and they get their settlements based on their political statuses. When reparations was done for the interned Japanese, it was not done for all Japanese Americans because that would technically be a racial group that falls underneath the Asian American umbrella. But it was done for a particular status, those who were interned Japanese and or their descendants. Likewise, we have to have a political status, and there was one established for us in the 1860s, and that was freedmen. And underneath that political status, Black Americans who who are formerly enslaved, or the descendants of the Black Americans who were emancipated by the American government, they were able to get policies specifically for them, including an agency of the government, the Freedmen's Bureau, because we had that status. So it's like people say, there's no need to reinvent the wheel when the wheel's been spinning perfectly fine. So simply using and reclaiming that freedman status is an easy way for us to have policies specifically done for us, because we try to do it based on any racial categories or anything that's very vague, simply saying a descendant of an enslaved person. You will have people from other nations who are probably descendants of people who were enslaved. But when you say freedmen, you're simply talking about the people who were enslaved and emancipated by the American government.
And some folks, there's a lot of other terms. Some folks say Negro because a lot of the legislation refers to us as Negroes. And then, of course, all the other more recent terms that have gained popularity on the internet. And in this movement as well. But you think freedmen for you is the most historically solid? Is that what you feel? Or is it just, because there are other options? To me, it wouldn't necessarily matter what you were called as long as you were meeting the qualifications of whatever that class is, right?
Well, actually, Negro is a racial term. That's the issue. There were people who could come to this country during a certain point in the 1900s from other countries would have been called Negro as well, but they were not freemen. They were not emancipated by the American government, nor were their ancestors. And
but
as we have seen with
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Now, as we have seen with affirmative action, if you try to do anything based on race, it will definitely not be able to stand up to constitutional scrutiny. So using a political status is the safest way to go.
But if you look at what's been done in California, and there's considerable work, I think people aren't really tracking the amount of work that the California Task Force did. I think it's important. One of the things that the distinctions that they made is that it's not only enslavement that reparations deals with, it's also the subsequent harms of Jim Crow. So even for California reparations, the way they have it laid out is that those who are obviously direct descendants of enslaved persons get different consideration. But if you were here, even if you came from somewhere else and you were classified as a Negro in the 1800s, but you were here and you suffered the disadvantages of Jim Crow and all of the stealing of wealth that happened that you were earlier pointing out, right? Cases like Black Wall Street, which was not at all rare, that there is a consideration that there's harm there as well that also is part of repair. You disagree with that, or you see it differently?
I have a different take. So one, reparations is not about necessarily fighting against anti-Black racism or defeating racism. Does racism need to go away? Absolutely. Have people been hurt by racism? Absolutely. But the truth of the matter is, as soon as slavery ended, we were owed reparations right then and there.
We agree on that, but I mean, are you saying that all the Jim Crow and the subsequent harm, the seizing of Bruce's Beach, the seizing of the Black Wall Street, that isn't part of reparations somehow?
Yes, I'm about to finish my point.
Okay.
So people, yes, racism, anti-Black racism hurts everyone. It even hurt white people. However, we have to focus on who were the targets of those policies. It was the freedmen who were the targets. So yes, after slavery, we should have gotten reparations. Instead, we were met with sharecropping, lynch mobs, Jim Crow, redlining, you name it. Those things hurt everyone. Yes, they did. But it was only one group that was targeted. So yes, my reparations plan definitely includes the harms that were done via Jim Crow and redlining. The point I'm making is that if other black people came from other nations during that time, yes, they definitely would have been hurt by those things, because really it hurt America, because you can't have justice for all if you don't have justice for every single group. It's either justice for all or it's justice for none. However, they were not the groups that were being targeted by those policies. So reparations is about the fact that we were owed as soon as slavery ended, and instead of giving us what we were owed, we were instead terrorized specifically with policies to restrict our movement. The other issues that
to be clear, so you're saying that even because those in the 1800s, those folks were not saying, oh, well, you're an immigrant, so I'm not going to target you. So even if they were targeted, you feel like because they came after the period of the peak enslavement period, they should not be entitled to any repair, which is a much stricter kind of definition, which would transfer considerably less wealth than and also change fewer policies than even what the California Task Force settled on, which seemed to be a compromise between the kind of lineage-based approach and the legacy approach, with a lineage based to cash reparation.
Anyone that has been harmed by this government deserves to have repair. Okay,
no, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. You know that. Let's not be disingenuous.
No, that's not being disingenuous. I'm stating a point that I've always stated. If any groups are harmed by the government, including black immigrants, they deserve to have repair. However, reparations for the harm of American slavery and then the subsequent terrorism that the Freedmen experienced, that is something that's separate from the harms of racism. That is just about
well, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about people that were specifically impacted, which is what the California Task Force clearly and carefully lays out.
I am not so familiar with the details of the California Task Force, but I'm speaking about my plan and the qualifications for my plan.
Okay. Well, I would suggest you familiarize yourself with it, because it will certainly inform and bolster your plan in many ways. And the amount of work that's been done here, 2 years of study by some of our best minds, lawyers, activists, and community members. And, it's a lot to get through, but I think I know, that there's a condensed version, and I know there are lots of different conversations and pieces of it available on the internet through YouTube and other places as well. We'll continue our conversation with Gregg, Marcel, Dixon when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure is going to have a hearing on the federal response to the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore, Maryland in March. A press release from the committee said the hearing will be held Wednesday morning and will feature witnesses that include NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy and a Federal Highway Administration official. A Virginia school board is voting to restore Confederate names to 2 of its schools. The Shenandoah County School Board had voted in 2020 to remove the names of Confederate Generals Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee from the local schools to affirm the district's commitment to an inclusive school environment. At a meeting, the school board voted to restore the names, saying the change was wrongly done and lacked public input. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
At least former Lakers coach Darvin Ham had 2 seasons with the team. Frank Vogel lasted only 1 with the Phoenix Suns. Vogel was kicked to the curb on Thursday after a 49-33 record. The Suns were swept by Minnesota in the first round of the playoffs. Vogel led the Lakers to the NBA championship in 2020, but he was shown the door 2 years later. No movement yet in the Lakers' search for their 4th coach in 8 years. Tennessee State University has a new women's basketball coach. The HBCU school hired Candace Dupree, a 7-time WNBA All-Star. Congratulations to Florida A&M's men's golf team. They won the HBCU National Championship. The Rattlers finished 29 strokes ahead of the competition. The Dodgers' 7-game winning streak is currently the longest in Major League Baseball. The Dodgers start a 3-game series in San Diego tonight. First pitch at 6:40. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Pizza's here.
Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
We used to argue about whose turn it was to clean the gutters, but then I had Leaf Filter gutter protection installed.
Wait, I told you Leaf Filter had free inspections and estimates and a lifetime guarantee.
Meaning we never have to argue about whose turn it is to clean the gutters again.
But I visited leaffilter.com/beacon first.
No, I did.
It doesn't matter who. Visit leaffilter.com/beacon to schedule your free gutter inspection and get up to 30% off today.
See representative for warranty details. Promotion is 20% off plus a 10% senior or military discount. One discount per household.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
Gregg, Marcel, Dixon joining me this Freedmen Friday. I want to say before I forget that Tariq Nasheed will be on with us on Tuesday. Wasn't able to make it on a Friday. That should be a lively conversation. Tariq Nasheed will be with us Tuesday on First Things First, KBLA Talk 1580. Right now we're talking with Gregg Marcel Dixon. He's running for Congress. He's trying to beat James Clyburn, who's been a staple in the U.S. Congress, and he's running on a platform of reparations, considers himself a freedman. I want to share a couple things in the chat. Molly Bell wants to know your political party. From looking at your Twitter, it looks like Republican. but I'm not sure. And last week we had a member of the GOP on who made a very passionate argument against reparations. But I know there are lots of folks in the reparations movement, or a fair number, at least online, who identify as Republicans. Where are you?
I run with the United Citizens Party, and I identify as a reparationist.
Okay, because I see the Democrats and some of the kind of language.
I also say Republicans, so I call them out too.
Okay, so you are running on an independent ticket.
A third-party ticket, United Citizens Party.
Okay, and I guess the question is, if you're calling them out to, there's so many questions. People in the chat have theirs, and I wish they would just call in 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. Mr. Washington says he doesn't understand he says, Dominique, I don't understand what you meant. Are you saying black immigrants get discriminated for reasons separate from the American freedmen, or is it because they are in a nation with slavery? Okay, so the way, and I don't have it in front of me, but the way that the California Task Force defined it was that there are levels to it. If you, through genealogy, which is an inexact science but evolving, and there's lots of different ways, can prove that you are a descendant of enslaved Americans, black Americans. I know everyone wants to pretend like it wasn't race, but the people that were enslaved were actually black. But anyway, if you can prove that, you're at a higher level in terms of cash payments, right? But other forms of repair, if you were in this country, either enslaved or as a free person, well, they're saying in the state of California because it's only for the state, and I believe it's 1865, then you qualify for other things that are not cash payments because you were subject to the same discrimination and robbing of your wealth and opportunity based on the fact that you would have been treated as if you were a black American. They didn't have special categories. So that way, the way they've lined it out, it doesn't mean you came to the United States Thursday and now you're lining up for reparations. It means you have a history in this country that goes back hundreds of years, and the repair that has been done based on you being treated as part of this class is still recognized.
So
that's not me saying that. That's the task force.
I understand, but I'm going to bring up some facts, and people are welcome to check them, and I promise you they will turn out to be true. Prior to the Civil Rights Movement, less than 1% of the black population was a black immigrant from the end of slavery to the Civil Rights Movement. And most of those people were absorbed into the larger black American population. But number two, though, and this is something that Muhammad Ali, you can read his story, there were black people, black Americans, freedmen, who would sometimes pretend to be black people from other places. Like now, Muhammad Ali mentioned how he wanted to go into a restaurant to get something to eat, and they did not allow him, but he said it was some people from an African nation, he didn't specify which nation, who had on their traditional garb. They were allowed to go right in and eat. There's stories of Afro-Cubans.
I mean, we can always come up with exceptions. That doesn't change
these
the
were exceptions. These
yeah,
were
they are.
patterns. And no, they're not. And I also want to say, again, reparations is not about racism. It's about the terror that freemen experienced. Were all of the people who were enslaved black? Yes, they were. But it's a specific group of black people who were old and how they continue to be targeted. People who were hurt by racism, because technically racism hurts everyone.
We're not talking about racism. We're talking about specific harm that was done to a specific class. Anyway, you should read the California Task Force report. You should read the recommendations of the California Task Force and argue with them, not with me, because what I'm laying out is what has been. Well, you should be.
I'm concerned about the policy that I'm here to promote for my plan, because you invited me on, not someone from the California Task Force.
Well, they've been on and they'll be back, but I'm just saying we're talking about.
I'm happy for them.
We're talking about a whole movement here, sir. So when you are debunking what I'm saying,
federal.
What I'm
saying, state level.
Right? But I imagine.
Right.
California is
So
one
I
of
just want to be clear.
California is one of our biggest states, and we have led the way on many a proposition, good and bad, which has been adopted at a federal level. So I assume that any federal actual movement will at least be influenced by what we've done in California. So tell me, how can you get that bill passed? How, we haven't been able to get voting rights. We haven't been able to get meaningful police reform through a divided Congress. And despite the fact that many reparationists seem to have faith in Republicans to do something, they have not shown any interest that I can see, that I've been able to document, in doing anything about reparations. So how do you pass that through Congress? It would need a bipartisan support, right? Or and even a lot of Democrats don't support. So how would you get that through?
So that's one of the reasons, Dominique, why I ran for office, because I've always said to people, if we are unhappy with the people representing us, we have two options. We can try to find and build our own candidates, or we can become the candidate to represent us. So I ran to be an example of what we need to do. We have to run for office. We have to support people who have our best interests in heart that run for office. Because you're right, this current Congress, even the Democrats aren't really supporting reparations. They shy away from it, or they're just outright against it. So if I get to Congress, let's say I was elected, I'm not going to still be able, realistically speaking, to get this reparations bill passed on my own. The best thing I'll be able to do is to be an advocate for reparations, is to be the person who serves as the mouthpiece about why we need to get it done. But the second best thing I can do is to try to help other people get elected who would be willing to help get it done. That's really the way this is going to move forward. Now, we can organize, we can take advantage of our right to petition the government, but at the end of the day, it's going to go in front of people who are elected legislators. And
so you're saying elect reparationists? That's the plan, is elect reparationists?
Elect reparationists are those who see that if you truly say you're for justice, then you can't be for justice and be against reparations.
I mean, we agree on that. I think the thing is, Mr. Dixon, that, and I've talked with this to people who were not, who were in different parties, but mostly in the Republican Party, that so far, what we've seen so far in America, the movement on reparations in terms of, governance has all come from Democrats. Shirley Weber wrote the California Task Force bill. Gavin Newsom supported the seating of that task force. Democratic administrations in city after city have set up their own task force. And I'm not, doing party gangbanging. I'm just trying to say, logically, I don't understand why so many reparationists are leaning Trump or leaning, Republican, when Republicans have yet to do one single solitary thing to move this towards fruition.
Well, I haven't seen a lot of reparationists leaning towards the Republicans. A lot of reparationists don't like either party because we've been failed by both parties. And as far as some people who are leaning towards Trump, that's because there may be other interests that they might have, such as this mass immigration that a lot of people feel has gotten out of control and needs to stop, and that harms Black Americans.
Sounds like you have that same view.
Oh, I absolutely do. And if you've seen my Twitter, which I know it sounds like you have, I'm always talking against mass immigration, how harmful it is to Black Americans, and how it's always been.
So you're saying they're not. Someone like you, for example, you're against immigration, and that's more important to you than getting reparations. So you rather go Trump because you don't like immigrants than go Democrats because we might actually get reparations.
So what I'm saying is that I want this mass immigration to stop, and that Trump is just as likely to do anything on reparations as Joe Biden has been, which means nothing
actually,
at all.
But actually that doesn't track, because Democrats as a party are moving this issue right now, state by state, city by city. We've got 4 states now that have reparations commissions. Yours is not one of them, but we do have 4. and we've got dozens of cities at this point. So it's getting momentum, right? Just like the legalization of cannabis with, going state by state, and then the Biden administration finally reclassifying what we saw with marriage equality, the same pattern, state by state, city by city. Eventually it becomes the law of the land. And that is all being moved by Democrats.
Well, I didn't mention the Democrats necessarily in that case. I was talking about Joe Biden, the president. But as far as the Democratic Party goes, let me be very clear about something. We have to look at these individual reparations task force and judge each one on their individual merits. And some of them are just a smokescreen, and some of them, like the one they did in Rhode Island, they're not just for the descendants of people who were enslaved or emancipated, the Freemen. They're saying they're for white people as well, so they're not truly reparations. Number two, Dominique, even if the Democrats were all in unison passing reparations, they should. And they should have done it a long time ago.
Yep.
It's not the Democrats who are doing reparations. It's people like the people there in California.
No. I want to, Mr. Dixon, I want to be clear, and I want to be clear, and also CJ says the same thing in the chat. I want to be clear. I'm not saying reparations are happening because of Democrats. I'm not saying that at all. You're right. It's happening because we, black people, activists, reparationists, grassroots people, going all the way back and coming all the way to now, have pushed the line. I agree with you on that. But as far as reacting to that pressure and actually creating bills and actually creating commissions, so far it's 100% Democrats.
And I would say it should be, because almost 100% of our votes goes towards them. And the fact that they're finally doing it because we've been organizing like we have for centuries, that's pathetic. Okay? So it should be the Democrats. But the truth of the matter is, Dominique, you can still look in places that are heavily blue, and there is nothing being done on reparations. You can look
not here. That's just simply not true. But so what you're saying, but what I'm hearing you, we're heavily blue, and we're the biggest.
There are other places that are very, very blue, and there is no action being taken on reparations.
Okay.
And even when you look
but the places where it is happening are blue. And it sounds to me like immigration is a higher priority for you than reparations. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Immigration is definitely a high priority for me, but reparations will always be the number one priority. But however, I can tell you one thing. There has never been a time in this nation where we've had large floods of immigrants and it's benefited black Americans. So I can talk and chew gum at the same time. That's why if you look at my platform, I have many policies on there that aren't just all about reparations, but reparations obviously my key platform issue.
All right, we're talking with Gregg Marcel Dixon. He's running for Congress in South Carolina, and he is doing so on a reparations platform. That's something I haven't heard happening before, but maybe he is pioneering a look that we will see again and again from legislators in the future. We're continuing the conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
The news on vapes talks a lot about the technology and teen use, but parents need to know more about the dangers of nicotine. So know this. 1. Nicotine is a poison that can rewire teens' brains. 2. It can increase mood swings. 3. It can limit attention and learning. So even when it comes in new tech, nicotine is brain poison. Go to undo.org for more.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. Visit jpmorganchase.com/racial equity and get the tools to help reach your financial goals.
Did you know that feeling sluggish or weighed down could be a sign that your digestive system isn't working at its best? Taking Metamucil every day can help. Metamucil fiber powders help promote your daily digestive health using a plant-based fiber called psyllium. The gelling action of this special fiber traps and removes waste so you can feel lighter and more energetic. Metamucil, promoting digestive health for a better you. Learn more at metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Right now, we're talking with Gregg, Marcel Dixon. He's running for Congress in South Carolina. He's a reparationist. I didn't get a chance to listen to it because I see that you were in Twitter Spaces, Mr. Dixon, talking about saying there's no good argument against reparations. And so I want to pick up on that thread and ask what you to address some of the arguments that we are hearing. Actually, especially from the GOP. But one of them is, a lot of white folks say, I wasn't a slaveholder. I'm not a slaveholder. I don't have white privilege. I didn't do anything. That's in the past. Why should I have to pay? What do you say to that?
Okay, very common argument. Well, one, I tell those white people don't got nothing to do with you. It's the American government. Reparations is not some attack on white people or making white people pay for the horrors of slavery, Jim Crow, and redlining. It comes from the federal government, as reparations in this nation has always come from them. But secondly, okay, people like to say, well, that's in the past. Well, so is the Constitution. So if they want to do away with everything in the past, then let's do away with the Constitution. Let's do away with those Confederate monuments that a lot of them like to defend. That's number two. And number three, they like to say, well, I didn't have anything to do with slavery, but you're living in a country whose wealth was generated by slavery. The first source of significant wealth in the United States of America was rice, grown right here in my native South Carolina by black people who had their rice growing skills from West and Central Africa. A lot of the ports in America built by slave labor. The railroads in the South and the Midwest built by slave labor, and also in your state, Dominique, the West Coast. People like to say it was the Chinese, but there were black freedmen who were working on that as well.
We weren't freedmen yet, but yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. They were, yes. So pretty much every bit of this country's wealth, from Wall Street to the roads, to the highways, to the ports, to the things that keep the economy churning, the original source of that was enslaved labor.
I think that's a great argument, but many white folks will say, but it's going to come out of my tax dollars. We can't afford it.
Well, one, I will say, and first of all, it doesn't come from their tax dollars. I know a lot of us believe the lie that the federal government relies on our tax dollars for spending, and I am sorry that we have all been miseducated. I was miseducated too, I am sure. But if anyone knows, the federal government is a currency generator, which means they spend and then they collect taxes. They don't collect taxes and then spend. And if anyone knows, the federal government has shown us time and time again they are not restricted by taxes during tax spending. And if people like to complain about the debt, there are two ways the American government has handled debt. And people can say what they want to say about Donald Trump, but he was calling it out. Donald Trump said that the American government makes plenty of money from debt. He says debt is the best thing they can have. What they do is they issue bonds to collect money off of that debt. Or number two, as we are seeing right now, Dominique, the American government cancels debt. They've canceled billions of dollars in student loans. They can cancel them all. I'm not sure why they haven't. They've canceled billions of dollars in student loans. They've canceled trillions of dollars right now as we speak in PPP loans. How are they able to do that? Because when the American government has quote-unquote debt, they only owe themselves. And Dominique, I don't know about you, but if I owed myself some money and I didn't have it, I would cancel that debt too. The American government does not work like our household, where if I only have $50 in the bank, I can't spend any more than those $50. No, the American government says, I need $500,000, and here's $500,000. The only thing they have to account for is inflation. But Dominique, let me make this last point real quick. People like to talk about, that it's going to come about tax revenue. Dominique, please tell me, because I've never experienced this in my entire life, when has our taxes ever gone up because of debt? Matter of fact, we have a historically high level of debt. And yet, due to Donald Trump's Jobs and Tax Cuts Act, I believe is what it was called, the taxes right now are not at their lowest, but at one of the lowest
for rich people. So the truth comes out. He's a MAGA guy. Got it. But
no, he's not a MAGA guy. I'm a reparationist guy.
I mean, you're sitting here arguing for the Trump tax cuts for the 0.1%, which he's planning to extend should he be reelected, and cut Social Security to pay for it. So it doesn't get much more MAGA than that.
Wait. No, not MAGA guy. I'm using conservative talking points against them. And if you weren't so blinded by maybe your Democrat liberal love, you will see I'm calling conservatives.
Yeah, it's clear you don't know me, but that's okay.
Well,
okay.
You don't know me either, so you can't call me MAGA guy.
Well, but when you spew MAGA talking points, that's what I will call you. And you just corrected me, so okay, I stand corrected.
Exactly.
But you're pushing a MAGA agenda. But you're using a MAGA agenda. You're big upping, the Donald Trump tax cuts for the rich, and big upping the anti-immigrant movement. So those are
wait a minute.
Those are.
You don't want me to call out conservatives using their own talking points? I'm calling out them on their hypocrisy, how they claim it's going to come from their taxes, yet they're always pushing for tax cuts because they know the federal government does not rely on our taxes for spending. I'm calling them out using their own talking points. That's something that you should try, Dominique, too.
Oh, well, you know what? I love when people call me whatever you just did, because that hopefully it gives you the opportunity to listen to my show and know that I'm a very independent-minded person. And yes, I am a Democrat, but I'm clearly the progressive wing, and I'm not a party line kind of gal. Anyway, we just have a minute, and I had a bunch more questions, but I want to just say, what do you want to leave us with today?
I just want to say, y'all, it's about justice. That's really what it's about. We can't live in a country and believe there's justice for all when there's not justice for everyone. Reparations will only go to the freedmen, yes, but it will benefit everyone. A lot of people like to say, well, we can't afford it. First of all, yes, we can. But the real concern people should have is not that, well, can we afford it? It's can we afford not to do it? And we cannot. This nation has denied rights to black Americans before, and it led to a bloody, bloody civil war in which our ancestors fought too. What's going to happen next because this nation refuses to do what they know is the right thing to do? We do not want to see that. So this is not to save black America. This is to save America. And Dominique, I really thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed this lively interchange. I really did.
Yeah, same. MarcelForCongress.com is where you can find him. If you want to learn more, MarcelForCongress.com. Stay with us. I'd love to hear your thoughts when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Now here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure is going to have a hearing on the federal response to the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore, Maryland in March. A press release from the committee said the hearing will be held Wednesday morning and will feature witnesses that include Paul Jackson and Robert E. Lee from the local schools to affirm the district's commitment to an inclusive school